Good morning. Thank you for tuning in this morning as we finish our series on American idols. This morning we're looking at the idol of self. And I love children. I love watching young people raising children and seeing them deal with what I had to deal with in raising my own. Not long ago, I walked to the back of our church auditorium after services where our young families kind of congregate. And I said to them, I have to admit, that I get a certain amount of pleasure out of watching you guys deal with your children when they're being ornery. I went through it. Now I get to watch you go through it. One of the most difficult lessons to teach children is how to be unselfish. Children have property laws that are just inherent within them. I don't know where they learned them. It's like they just came out of the womb knowing them. And in case you're unaware, here's a list of the property laws according to a toddler. If I like it, it's mine. If it's in my hand, it's mine. If I can take it from you, it's mine. If I had it a little while ago, it's mine. If it's mine, it must never appear to be yours in any way. If I'm doing or building something, all the pieces are mine. If it looks like mine, it's mine. If I saw it first, it's mine. If you are playing with something and you put it down, it automatically becomes mine. And finally, if it's broken, well, it's yours. Are these not right on point? A child completely and totally is committed to itself. However, we understand this, don't we? We don't hold it against them because they don't know any better. They must be trained to be selfless. We must instruct them and enlighten them on the fact that the world doesn't revolve around them. Some adults seem to have never learned this valuable lesson. Although they may be more sophisticated in their approach, their motives haven't changed. It's all about me. It's all about getting what I want when I want it. And this childish mentality constantly rears its ugly head in our society. I'll never forget, many years ago, I was going to a restaurant in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was driving through the parking lot looking for a parking space, and I noticed a car with its blinker on, waiting on a space that was being vacated by another vehicle. And just as the vehicle backed out and left the space, another car coming from another direction cut in front of that car that was waiting for the space and just proceeded to park. I watched as an argument ensued. The man waiting for the space jumped out of his car and began hurling obscenities at the one who stole the spot. What could the parking space thief say? I'm sorry. In my selfishness, I wanted the spot, therefore I took it? Because that's precisely what happened. The Declaration of Independence reads, at least in part, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This sentence has been called one of the best-known sentences in the English language and the most potent and consequential words in American history. This passage has often been used to promote the rights of marginalized groups and has come to represent for many people a moral standard for which the United States should strive. However, I seriously doubt Thomas Jefferson and his colleagues could have foreseen just how far our culture would expound on such a statement. The Declaration of Independence's motivational wording stirred the colonists to demand their God-given freedom and their entitlement to dissolve the political bans. They were seeking a basic freedom that all men and women should be afforded. But today, many have grossly perverted Jefferson's words. Many have exploited their meaning. And the impetus in 1776 is still the impetus today. Unalienable rights. Now, unalienable means not to be separated, given away, or taken away. It means that which is not capable of being transferred to another's ownership. This term has been canonized in our culture, and society's gross perversion of unalienable rights has gone so far that the creature has sought independence from everything. Independence from any moral code or standard, even independence from God himself. Creature is now in control. God has been voted out. The very God who imparted these unalienable rights is pushed aside in favor of the God of radical individualism. Certainly, Mr. Jefferson's cherished words concerning these unalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, should be qualified with the phrase, within reason. 21st century Americans have definitely gone beyond the realm of reason in their pursuit of worldly gain and the pleasure of self. Sacrifice and selflessness are out in popular culture, and indulgence and self-centeredness are in. People spend trillions of dollars each year trying to make themselves happy. They attempt to turn their frown upside down through a myriad of avenues, whether it be media or travel or food or drugs or alcohol or whatever. We are constantly pursuing the pleasure of self. The God of pleasure is constantly whispering in our ear, come on, satisfy that craving. You know what you want. And all too often we succumb, we bow down. There is a God. You're not him. That's irrefutable. Therefore, a choice must be made. Who will you serve? And it's fitting that the first letter of idolatry is I, because idolatry is really all about I. It's all about selfishness. It's about fashioning a God that suits oneself or serving the God of self. We might even call it an addiction to me. One of the primary symptoms of the disease of me is pride. When it's all about me, I don't have to apologize for anything. I don't have to seek forgiveness. I don't have to concern myself with anyone except myself. Life is all about me, and everyone around me are just extras in a drama about me. The only time I truly reach out to someone is when I feel like they can provide some sort of service to me. Those who cannot, I really don't have much use for. Pride is a very interesting thing. It's tasteless, it's colorless, it's sizeless, it's odorless, it's non-fattening, and yet it's the hardest thing to swallow. Pride is the only disease that makes everyone sick except the one who has it. I mean, who wants to be around someone who is always blowing their own horn or strutting while they're sitting down? Who finds this person attractive? Well, God certainly doesn't. Proverbs 6:16 and 17 reads, "There are 6 things which the Lord hates, yes, 7 which are an abomination to him. And the first one listed among those things which our Lord hates is haughty eyes." The King James renders it a proud look. Pride is the number one thing that keeps people out of heaven. It's an absolute shame just how many people have missed out on the reward of heaven because of too much pride. And it's very fitting, as I said, that the first letter in idolatry is I, but it's also very fitting that the middle letter of pride is I. When you think too highly of yourself, it's only natural that God gets pushed out of the picture. I mean, after all, what do you need him for? You can do it on your own. You don't need someone telling you what to do or how to live. You're in control. You're number one. You don't rely or depend on anyone. If there's something you need or want, you go out and you take it because it's yours and you deserve it. You are the center of the world, the universe, the cosmos. The world exists to serve you, so who needs God? Pride loves to be worshiped, and it's greatly offended when it gets overlooked. Another symptom of the disease of me is insecurity. The God of self is consumed by what others think. And this means the one who is infected is scared to death of failing. When you are your own God, you can't help but be self-conscious. Are you defensive? Do you always read into what others are saying? Do you get upset at the slightest critique? Do you view a minor suggestion as a personal attack? The God of self cannot handle criticism. He can't handle equals. He can't handle authority. The one who bows to this God needs people around them who constantly affirm and reaffirm what they're all about. I want you to notice Jeremiah chapter 2 and what it says there. It reads, "Has a nation changed gods when they were not gods? But my people have changed their glory for that which does not profit. Be appalled, O heavens, at this, and shudder. Be very desolate, declares the Lord. For my people have committed 2 evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, to hew for themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that hold no water." Who would dig a broken cistern when there was living water flowing right beside them? Cisterns were an important part of daily life in Jeremiah's time. Since rain was very infrequent, the people would dig these cisterns and they would line them with brick and plaster so that it would hold the water. However, it was easy for these cisterns to break. In fact, they did so quite often. And even if they didn't break, the water would often become stagnant and inadequate. Jeremiah's audience would have thought this metaphor to be ridiculous. No one in their right mind would choose a broken cistern when a crystal clear stream of water was available. And yet that is precisely what the people were doing in a spiritual sense. They were choosing idols instead of God. And that's the ridiculousness of idolatry. We choose a broken well with poor water instead of living water. We look to something or someone else to do what only God can do. Are you drawing water from a broken cistern? Are you seeking to quench your thirst with water that is of poor quality when living water is readily available? When my children were much smaller, we went to a very nice restaurant to eat. It was probably not a wise choice, but every now and then you like to splurge, and I was excited for my family to sit down and eat at a fancy restaurant because we rarely did that sort of thing. This particular restaurant featured steak and shrimp and lobster, all the exquisite foods that you would expect on the menu at a pricey eating establishment. And when it came time to order, I told the kids to get whatever they wanted. I mean, after all, how much could they eat? They were small. Surely they wouldn't cost me that much. And I remember that Keely and Zoe ordered a steak, I think. But when the waitress asked Zane what he wanted to eat, he said, "I'll have the chicken strip basket." And I said, "Really? I mean, there's all sorts of delicious food to choose from. You can have chicken strips anytime. Why not get something you don't normally get?" "But I want chicken strips," he said. And so, while the rest of us ate a little higher on the hog that night, Zane had one of the cheapest items on the menu. And that was certainly okay, but I was looking forward to seeing him experience a steak or shrimp, but instead he chose something quite average, something that's on virtually every menu of every restaurant. How do you think God feels when you choose less than what he offers? How do you think he feels when we reject his water for our own cisterns? He wants us to experience the best, and yet we so often settle for less. What are you thirsty for? Are you longing for peace? Are you lonely? Are you seeking purpose? Do you desire acceptance? Are you searching for validation or significance? Are you thirsty for something more out of life? Have you reached the realization that the cisterns you're drawing from are broken and full of stagnant water? Well then, hear the invitation of Jesus. Drink from me, and you will never thirst again. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. I love you all. Bye-bye.